Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Lost Legend TV. I'm Ray. This is definitely the most dreaded entry that I have to cover in this kill ranking. Freddy's Dead was released in 1991 and it holds a very low rating. In majority of the platforms I hold about 20%. It's safe to say they really fucking bombed on this. Unfortunately, all 6 entries of the Nightmare franchise was released before I was born. But I can only imagine growing up as a child or a teen or even an adult and seeing the birth of Freddy Krueger. Being able to witness these amazing films, these wildly successful films, like Wes Craven's Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3, Nightmare 4. Up until this point before this movie was released, I would say that there's only one bad film, and that's part 5. Now the story is New Line was done with Freddy. They wanted to focus their energy and money on other things. So they decided to make one last definitive Nightmare movie. Now if it was up to me, and I just took a L on the last one, I would try my damnedest to get back to the original, back to the gritty, or even back to the cool MTV Freddy that we got in part 4. You can really sense and visually see a major change in part 5 when it comes to the cartoony effects, but even the special effects in Freddy's Dead. Because one thing I mentioned in this series, Nightmare on Elm Street has some very good practical effects. There are some that are kind of mediocre, needs a little touch up. But I mean, for the 80s, there were some really good practical effects in these films. And even though I really don't like part 5, it did have some great practical effects. Like Dan's death with that motorcycle, some of the set pieces. But they brought on John Carl Buechler, who you may know from Friday the 13th The New Blood, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This guy has worked on some big names. Most of the Mount Rushmore. And in my opinion, even he couldn't save this movie from the bad practical effects. And I state that mainly towards the ending scene with the whole 3D bullshit they try to pull off, cringe-worthy to me. Some of the kills are okay. Just like Nightmare 5, Freddy's Dead only has 3 kills in this movie, which is crazy. Now, just like part 5, there is a work print version out there with missing material that I think could have changed this movie for the better. I can't say that because I haven't actually seen most of the footage. I've seen some of it. But apparently from the research I have dug up, there's about almost 50 minutes of material that was cut away from this film. Now if you do the math on that, that's almost a little over 2 hour movie, probably a 2 hour and 15 minute movie. I'm just like, wow, I am baffled. But at the end of the day, the studio wanted to be done with it and they was going to do whatever the fuck they wanted because they knew it was going to make money. As bad as it is, it still made money. So if you guys are ready, let's get into these kills. My number 1 favorite death of this film out of the 3 is Carlos' death. Now Carlos is a character that on the rare occasion I do watch this movie, he holds it down for me. I often quote one of his lines just because it's fucking funny. Oh yeah? Where the map says we're fucked.
Yeah, well the map says we're fucked.
I fucking love that line. Just like with any other bad film, there are highlights of it. And I think this is one of them. Carlos's death is funny. Even though I hate the cartoony vibe of this movie, I think this works. Freddy living his best life, scraping his glove against that chalkboard, and how Carlos's hearing aids fuse into it and it just grows bigger and bigger and bigger and he just fucking explodes. It was also badass Freddy catching his ear, but this is one of the few times I don't like Freddy's one-liner here. I think the death practical effects are pretty cool, but just not the end set pieces towards the end of the film. I don't rock with it. But Carlos's death here, him bleeding out his mouth, him bleeding out his eyeballs, his head fucking exploding. When the hearing aids fuse, they get like these really weird creature fucking legs. I do like that aspect of this death. This death alone and Carlos's character carried this movie for me. I can give 2 fucks about the rest of them. I never gave a fuck about Maggie. The character of John Doe did intrigue me, and he is my number 2. So my number 2 pick is John Doe. Now let's talk about John Doe. This movie has a very odd opening. It doesn't stray away from the cartoony world one bit. Like, it immediately jumps into it. And you're introduced to this John Doe. He doesn't know where he is. We don't know who he is. And the movie leads you to believe that he is Freddy's son, which we already know now that's not the case. His role in the film, I felt like was kind of wasted. The biggest highlight that he contributed to the film, to me, was his dream sequence in the beginning, especially where he starts dreaming and he wakes up and he's still dreaming and he wakes up and he's still dreaming and he wakes up and he's still dreaming. And he's like, no, I ain't fucking leaving this house. And then the room sets on fire, the house erecting up and flying to the sky, and then we see fucking Freddy Krueger acting like the fucking bitch witch off of Wizard of Oz. I'm just like, God damn it. I'll get you, my pretty. And your little soul, too. Fucking corny. But his death scene, when it comes to John Doe's death scene, it's tolerable. I wouldn't say I like it, but I also don't dislike it as well. There is a moment where we find out Freddy gets his monologue telling John Doe that you're not my son, I gotta go get my daughter. And then he cuts the cord, he's like in this parachute thing, and then he falls down, and there's a quick moment where Freddy's pushing these fucking spikes down, and when Freddy says grounded while he's falling, I'm just like, God damn, dude. But it was really comical seeing Freddy push that rail box of spikes. He's like, I'm fucking tired. And the end result, when we see him actually die, seeing the spike marks and the blood coming out and like blood's dripping from his mouth, that's cool. And I think his acting is fine in this. Like, it's pretty good. It was believable. I actually felt sorry for him because unlike most characters in the Nightmare franchise where they act scared, where they just scream and they die, it legit came across like he was in legitimate pain. And I did always enjoy that. Coming in at my number 3 and the last entry is Spencer. Spencer cracks me up in the film. However, I feel like he doesn't really contribute to the film at all. I feel like he's just a waste of screen time. And I'm not harping on that actor. I'm not saying that he's a bad actor or anything like that. But the character itself, I really feel like you can remove this character and the movie doesn't change. I'm probably in the minority, but I don't like this video game montage scene. Never have.
Hey, you forgot the power glove.
I fucking hate the cartooniness of this fucking film. I feel like if you're gonna make a definitive Nightmare film, you go back to who the fuck Freddy was, a fucking murderer that tortured you in your dreams. But at this point, these one-liners just kept getting worse and worse and worse. The practical effects getting worse and worse and worse. Freddy's makeup getting worse and worse and worse. The characters getting worse and worse and worse. The writers getting worse and worse and fucking worse. Seeing as I have seen Freddy's Dead many times, just because this is one of the ones I had on DVD as a kid, and I would rewatch it periodically. Because at the time when I was little, it was the only DVD of the Nightmare franchise that I had. But Spencer's death, I can enjoy his time while he's sitting there in the video game, getting fucking beat up, be like me, be like me. But what I like about this death is actually the build-up. Nobody ever talks about Johnny Depp coming back as a fucking cameo, talking about this is your brain on drugs. And then Freddy comes in like, hey Spence, let's trip out. And then a song comes in. The build-up was fucking grooving, man. Like, I really like it. But the death scene itself, I'm just like, eh. It's really hard to look at Freddy in this scene because we go from like 1 and 2 Freddy and like, I think part 2 Freddy is the scariest of the franchise. You look at that dude, he's fucking scary. I feel like you can do that part 3 too. Part 4 wasn't about being scary, it was about being a rock star. But even that went out the window. When I look at this Freddy, I'm just like, did this motherfucker come from like Temu or fucking Wish.com? And then him falling down the steps into the fucking abyss down there. And then he's sucking in the souls. If I make it this far into the movie, which I hardly ever do these days, I'm just like, bye Spence. On to the next. But there is no next. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is my kill ranking for Nightmare on Elm Street 6. Freddy's Dead. The final nightmare. But before we go, let's talk about Freddy's death. And let's close this out on a proper note here. Me being a Freddy fan, I don't want to go out on a low note here. The premise of this movie, I always held in high regard. And almost everybody I know differs from that. But I have always wondered what happens when Freddy reaches his goal. When he kills and gets his revenge on all the parents on Elm Street and Springwood. What's gonna happen when there's no kids left to kill? What does Freddy do after that? And this movie kind of explored that. And they kind of explored and gave you just a little bit of prequel material for Freddy Krueger. Seeing his upbringing, which I thought was pretty cool. You see Freddy as a kid in school. You see him as an older teen. You can clearly see he's disturbed. But it just doesn't work for me. You have cameos in here with like Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold in that fair scene. Trying to play off the fact that there's no kids left. Like maybe all these fucking adults are deranged because all their kids are dead. But it's just acting at its fucking worst. I mean, it fucking sucks. Again, the premise, I love it. I love the idea of exploring that territory. However, you just fell fucking flat on your face. You fell so flat on your face, so fucking hard, with so much momentum, that your neck detached from your body and rolled back up the hill from where you started. Unfortunately, it was a swing and a miss, you know? You know there's more Nightmare films out there, but this was not the way to send Freddy off in this manner. If this was me in 1991 in the theater and I saw this piece of shit, I swear to fucking God, I'm probably burning that fucking theater down. I'm heading up to New Line Cinema and I'm whooping some ass. One thing I mentioned in the last video that me and James did on Nightmare 5, the kill ranking. If you want a proper Freddy prequel, go see the Freddy's Nightmares pilot. That gives you all the information you need to know. And that pilot right there, they work with the bare minimum assets. But I promise you, it is a great fucking pilot. It is a great prequel play out. The sequences, the story, the characters, I'm talking about, fucking fabulous. I don't see why they didn't tap into that. I mean, this did come out a year later. By that time, the TV series had already ended. But tap into the idea, man. Like, what they had going on was fucking great. And they made that on minimal budget. I don't see the disconnect here. It was directed by Rachel Tallahay, and she had her hands on the first 4 films as a producer. But it fell flat. But that's it, guys. That is my kill ranking for Freddy's Dead. Now, I can't wait to see you in the next one. We'll be talking about one of my favorite Nightmare films, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Till next time, guys, I love you all, and adios.